What's going on, everybody? It's plate coverage back for another week here. Commish, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you
Good,
are.
good
How are you?
evening. It's 11:30 p.m.
It is 11. It is p.m. I don't know why I said good morning, but
Yeah, it's
how
it's
are you?
always so like for people who don't know, it's one of the more you I don't know if it's unique. It's just like it's logistical gymnastics sometimes with me and Toast trying to record this because I'm usually at a baseball field all day, coaching, directing, things like that, and then I'm on the East Coast, and then Toast is all the way over there in Alaska, so there's a 4-hour time difference. And we're trying to sync up and record this, so sometimes it can cause some issues. But life is good, man. Always good this time of year. Tons of baseball on, youth baseball, collegiate baseball, high schools, MLB, obviously, and we get a little bit of extra icing on the cake this week with Angel Hernandez retiring.
That's right. Yeah, I don't know if there has been I don't know if there's been a more polarizing umpire than Angel Hernandez in our time. I don't know if there ever will be. But man, I guess I'm curious to see what are your thoughts on this whole situation. Obviously, he's not a great umpire. We all know that. But are you happy to see this unfold the way that it did?
It's tough for me because as a bettor, there's obviously an edge when Angel Hernandez is behind the mound that I don't think a lot of people appropriately account for. So I think there's some value there. From a fan's perspective, it's definitely frustrating when the rules of the game are significantly different when Hernandez is back there relative to another umpire. Obviously famous for a lot of missed calls, but not just the missed calls, but also berating players, having a quick hook just for dirty looks, things like that. I don't know, but he's kind of good for the game, man. Like I feel like no one talks about baseball more than when Angel Hernandez does a Sunday night
Thank
game.
you.
So I think
That
I do think there's going to be a loss in some capacity in that regard.
So yeah, and I get that, and I agree with that, and that's kind of part of what I wanted to say is that I'm not trying to make a case that Angel Hernandez was some misunderstood guy and he was getting calls right and all this BS. Like that's not what I'm trying to make a case. But all I'm trying to say is that I don't think he's as nearly as bad as everybody makes him out to be. Again, not trying to make a case that Angel Hernandez is some great umpire again, and that's misunderstood. He definitely has his faults. We can go back to the Oakland game where he didn't change the replay call, and we don't know if he really saw a good replay because keep in mind, remember back when this all started, the replay was undone underneath the stadium. It was him and 2 or 3 other umpires on some small little 17-inch thing. Yep. It wasn't a whole bunch of, it wasn't 17 screens in New York making a call and then telling the umpires what to call. So that was a different situation. I think a lot of the umpires liked him for that. Some people said he got the call wrong on purpose because he didn't like the new instant replay. I don't know about all that. He obviously sued Major League Baseball. That's another big storyline of his. He sued Major League Baseball for racial discrimination. But he didn't win that lawsuit. Why? Because they didn't promote him to work the World Series and all that stuff because of that incident that happened in Cleveland. Didn't it happen in Cleveland against the Indians? So
his job performance has also been horrific across the board.
And that's the thing. And then another thing, again, I'm not trying to make this is going to be, everybody's going to come at me saying I'm defending him. But again, also his worst work.
We're going to get a ton of comments on it, but this is
I know, but again, let's just be reasonable. All his worst work has been on huge stages like Sunday Night Baseball or the playoffs. That playoff game with the Yankees when he had 3 missed calls in a row and they all got overturned over the course of that game. The Bryce Harper thing with the check swing, the Kyle Schwarber thing with Hader against that Milwaukee. I get all that.
That one game, I will tell you, like that one game, I think was the point of no return for Angel Hernandez because obviously the latter half of his career has been in the social media age.
Right.
I bet on Philly that night. And it wasn't just the Schwarber call. I mean, Schwarber, of course, got ejected. He threw the helmet down, the bat down. He lost his shit. That's what I think a lot of people remember about that because it was the 9th inning against Hader. But people don't remember that earlier in that game, Gene Segura came up with the bases loaded. And Angel Hernandez called strike 1 on him on a pitch that no shit was 2 feet inside. And Segura just stepped out of the box and looked at him like, no, that was not a strike. And then I think it was Eduardo Perez was on the broadcast and he was talking about, like, he explaining how players in Spanish go about having those conversations in like a respectful, not so respectful type of way. Just to let the umpire know that they thought that they missed that call. But that cost the Phillies runs in the first 5, then Schwarber in the 9th. Like, I'm with you. He's had some really iconic misses on big stages that have only fueled the narrative further that he is one of the worst umpires, if not the worst umpire of all time, which I think is a stretch. He's bad, but there's other bad umpires that don't have the notoriety that Angel Hernandez has for sure.
Right. And I guess the only point that I will leave us at is this. Angel Hernandez, if you're looking at grades this year, last few years, he's not even in the bottom 20% of major league umpires. So just know, guys, that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. Again, I'm not trying to make a case that we should have Angel Hernandez in our game. I'm just trying to make the case is that it's not as bad as everybody on social media makes it out to be. That's my major point on Angel Hernandez. That's all. So
let me ask you this before we move on then, because we're never going to see an umpire this polarizing again, more than likely, because Manfred just last week talked about probably going to at least the ABS challenge system where batters get to challenge missed calls within an at bat, probably within the next 2 or 3 years. Umpire personalities are going to become less and less part of the game going forward. Is that a good thing for Major League Baseball or a bad thing?
I don't see, and I don't know if we're going to lose that so much, because now you're going to have guys that we're going to be like, oh, think about how many times he misses a call in the box. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to have all these reasons to dislike them even more because now the challenges are out there. And I guess, and here's the other thing that, like, this just opens up a whole box of worms. But like, for instance, like if you're watching a baseball game, I'm not talking to you personally, Commish, but if you're watching a baseball game, that box that you see as a guide, that's not what that's not what major league umpires are graded on. That's not anything. It has nothing to do with that. That's just a guide. And a matter of fact, if you watch the same game and you watch 2 different broadcasts, that box isn't the same. One ball in the one box might look like a strike and the other one might look like clearly a ball. So again, when you're just, the reason that I say that is just make sure that you use context. There's a lot of things that make, especially in the game of baseball, things look a lot worse on certain broadcasts than they really are. So there's context to everything. Stuff like MLB MLB auditor, umpire auditor, that scorecards. That's what it's called. They do a fantastic job. It's awesome. It's good to see what's in the zone, what's not in the zone, all that stuff. But there's a huge but to that. You can't use that when making arguments about Major League Baseball and their umpires, because that's not the criteria that they're graded on. So all those umpire scorecard scores don't really mean anything, and we can get all mad about it as much as we want. But the fact of the matter is that Major League Baseball doesn't care about that, because that's not how they grade their umpires. Right or wrong, it is what it is. I don't think a lot of people won't know that or understand that. So I guess it's easier to shed a little bit of light to that situation, I guess.
Yeah. Being an umpire is tough too, man. And
oh yeah.
This is maybe it's not a hot take. Maybe it's a mild take. I think if we gave umpires PitchCom, if we gave them a better idea of what pitches were coming, they would be in a better position to make more consistent, accurate ball and strike calls. I have so much empathy for them in the modern game right now with the horizontal and vertical break that we're seeing on these pitches. And now you have catchers closer and closer to home plate actively trying to deceive umpires into calling balls strikes. Their job has never been more difficult in the history of Major League Baseball. And I don't think we appreciate that enough, whether it's Angel Hernandez or I just feel like I see it on a nightly basis, people complaining about umpires, and I'm guilty of it as well sometimes, especially when you're betting. It's very frustrating. But catchers are it is a focal point of 6, 8, 10, 12 week offseason programs just working on framing, trying to steal strikes. You hear guys talking about it all the time. Wilson Contreras, he was the one who broke his hand, right? The other day, getting too close. He broke his hand. We've talked to Austin Hedges. Like, other guys have gone on podcasts and talked about how much that's emphasized. What other
you guys don't understand how much 2 inches of depth can change what a pitch looks like to the human eye. Like, I can't underestimate how huge that is.
Yeah,
like,
and umpires don't know what's coming too. Like those 2 seams that have cut back to the plate, those sweepers are moving 15, 18 inches now. It's a tough job. It's a really tough job.
Okay, I want to say something to your point on should they know what's coming. Do you want that? Do I want my umpire to? I understand that you're like, okay, he knows the slider's coming, but do I want him anticipating that movement? That's an honest question. I don't know if I want that.
I think I would.
Okay,
I think they could position themselves more than me. Better. Like that.
You're on the diamond every day, so
that. Like, I wish that we could do that. I don't coach it. I don't coach college kids. I don't coach professional kids. It's all high school and down. But I sometimes wish that we could do that because, and again, we have amateur umpires that work with us. They all
Right.
do a fantastic job. Like our umpires
I get it.
tremendously, but they don't have the same training. It's not a full-time job for them in the way that it is for major league umpires. I wish that they knew sometimes just so they could set up better, so they could anticipate movement. There's sometimes a guy will throw a nasty curveball, a nasty off-speed pitch, and I just don't think they're expecting that, and that ball will drop into the zone, or sometimes you have a fastball that'll come back to the outside corner, and sometimes the umpire had already given up on a pitch, which is what you're trying to get a batter to do, and sometimes you also get the umpire to give up on that pitch, and then you don't get that called strike. So I would be interested to see what that would look like if you tested that in the minor leagues or in spring training. What would it look like in terms of grading accuracy if the umpire knows what's coming versus the current system where they're flying blind?
I think that'd be a good question to ask, like one of the higher up peoples too. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
to hear their question. Oh yeah, because that's kind of an interesting topic, to be honest with you.
Yeah. But anyway, we can't spend an hour talking about umpires.
That's true.
Someone who actually is on the field. Tough news this week. Ronald Acuña Jr. out for the season towards ACL again. What do we make of this? I know you hate on the Braves, but Acuña, one of the best and brightest in the league. Baseball's at its best when its stars are on the field. That really tough break for him, especially coming back from a devastating knee injury 2 years ago or 3 years ago at this point. What do you make of this for the Braves and for Major League Baseball as a whole?
For baseball, just sucks. Just sucks as a baseball fan. Obviously, if you're watching this show, you probably know I'm one of the biggest Braves haters in the world. But not even me wants to see Ronald Acuña go down with a non-contact injury like that. He's just too good of a player for our game. It's too fun to watch. Even if I want the Braves to lose, I mean, I'm happy that they're not going to win the World Series now, but I want to see them lose. Like I tweeted, like I want to see them lose with everybody in their lineup, not guys like Short, Trump, and Kelnick in their lineup. And I understand that certain guys have to play through the year, but you get my point. Is that I want to see them lose. If they're going to lose, I want to see them lose with a full team, not because Acuña went down and they don't have any pitching and whatever. But I think it just opens up. I think it opens up a lot of a box of worms for Acuña now and the Braves, because what do we do now? If you're the Braves, what do we do? You have JP Martinez in AAA for depth. That's coming up to the big leagues now. You have Kelnick, Harris, and Duvall out there, which is pretty much what they got. Snicker asked about it, and he said, quote, "It's a day-to-day thing. It is what we have what we have," is what he said. And then they asked him about who's going to, and then that goes into, okay, so Acuña was your leadoff guy. Well, who's going to be your leadoff hitter now? So then Snitzer says, well, I like Albies to go with the lefties. I may stay with him up there. I don't know. We'll see how everybody else is going and what it looks like on a daily basis, which I don't think they're going to tell us their plan, but I'm curious to see if they actually have one. Does Ozzie stay up there with lefties and righties? Do you move Michael Harris Jr. up there as well? Adam Duvall isn't really doing much. And then as far as like the Braves in the minor leagues, they don't really have much either. I went and looked at their farm system, and their farm system is super low on outfield depth. I mean, they have 4 top prospects in the top 30 in the major league Yeah, 4 of them, they have 4 prospects in the top 30 of prospects that are outfielders. Only one of them is above single A. So they do have some solid outfield prospects coming up, but none of them are ready for the major leagues. Yeah. So again, Forrest Wall is another guy that has been somewhat decent for him, but he's going to be blocked because they want to keep Chadwick Trump up on the roster. So yeah, it sucks. I just, again, for the game of baseball, but it does open up a lot of things. And it just goes back to like the Phillies and how well their start has been. Like it goes back to, do we see them like start sitting guys and stuff? Because at what point do they think about the rest factor and not getting guys hurt and stuff? Because I don't know who's going to catch the Phillies now. I mean, regardless, the Mets aren't going to do it. Obviously, now the Braves aren't going to do it. I mean, they might be able to stay close for a while, but it's not going to really matter. So, yeah, I think this kind of changes things as far as the NL wild card as well. I think that this opens up a lot of opportunities for different teams. So we'll see where we're at in a month or so. I had a feeling today that the Braves would play well with Acuña. They got throttled. Charlie Morton didn't look good. The Nationals put it on them today. So I'll be very curious to see how they bounce back the next couple of days. Washington's been a really good team. One of the best teams as far as ROI is concerned as far as the gamblers. So it's definitely not an easy out, but yeah, sucks to see. That's for sure.
Yeah, especially for a guy, a historic season last year, coming back from that injury a couple seasons ago, and not having an MVP caliber season this year, but um, it just sucks. It sucks. I feel like we can't get enough people to talk about baseball, appreciate the stars of baseball on a day-to-day basis. And when now you think about the guys that were down Strider or Acuña on the same team, and that's a team that had legitimate World Series aspirations at the start of the year. We don't have guys like DeGrom, Nathan Eovaldi's on the IL now. I mean, you just go on and on and on. All the premier names that are not on the field with Major League Baseball right now. For the Braves specifically, I think this is a really tough spot for them. Now you don't have Strider. You don't have Acuña. You basically don't have your best pitcher. And you don't have your best hitter. And you mentioned that just the lack of alternative options that you have at the top of that lineup. Even though Acuña wasn't having an MVP type season, he still has a 716 OPS, which, he's giving you quality at bats. You trust him day to day. If you're a teammate, it's a comfort thing. You see Acuña at the top of the lineup, and now you have Albies or Michael Harris, the two logical options to replace him. I know you mentioned Albies against lefties, very, very solid. Michael Harris just has not been having a good season at all, though. That's just a little forced to throw him up there. But who else do you throw up there? Like you said,
exactly. That's what I'm saying. What are you going to be? Orlando Arcia? No.
You're not looking at a guy like Marcelo Zuna with no speed, a big power threat. You're not going to think about him in the leadoff spot.
I mean, I guess you could put. I guess if you're really trying to switch things up, you could pull a Phillies and put Austin Riley as your one.
Yeah, but he's not having a good season.
Oh, I know. I'm just saying, but you
back
can't.
From an injury.
Then you start going down the list. You can't put Olsen up there because he strikes out every other at bat. I mean, so what do you? I mean, you know what I mean. So you can go through the option. We can go through options all the way, but it's bleak in Atlanta. It's very bleak right now.
Yep. So it sucks. We wish Acuña a speedy recovery. Fingers crossed.
Absolutely. Yep. Hopefully he comes back. Again, this isn't the first time he's messed up his knee as well. So that's another thing that's even more concerning, I guess, as well.
It is a different knee. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
I was wrong. I thought I read it was the same knee. Then I guess that's a little bit better. But now you have two bad knees. So
I'm almost 95%. I'm like 99% positive.
You're probably right.
But we'll see. Yeah. Hopefully we get you back soon, Ronald. But
yeah. But
moving on. So some guys going in the right direction. I know you got a list of some underrated relievers that you want to talk about, bring to the public's attention.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, again, you guys can look and see who the standings are and stuff. I think that once we start getting some more guys as far as prospects coming up and stuff, we can start looking at like who's hot, who's not. But I think bullpens have played a really big issue. I mean, they're always a huge starting point as far as when you're handicapping baseball and whatnot. So there's just a couple guys out there that I try to get as much bullpen talk as possible, because I do think that it's one of the more things that people just gloss over. It's more of like team X has a good bullpen, or team Y has a good bullpen, or team B has a bad bullpen, or whatever. There's not a lot of context to it. So just a couple guys to throw out there that have just been really kind of dominating competition. Matt Strahm for the Phillies, excellent strikeout to walk ratio. He's been doing essentially everything for the Phillies. He can close games. He's not going to be their closer, but he can close games. He can be their long relief. He can be their setup man. Hell, he could start games if he wanted to. He's got 30 strikeouts in 20 and a third innings, only allowing 2 walks, only giving up 2 earned runs all season. He's just got a funky little sidearm angle, one of those things. And again, that Phillies pitching staff's just been absolutely awesome. So between him and Hoffman, that Phillies bullpen can be very, very dangerous if everybody's clicking on all cylinders. When you have Alvarado and Soto in there, you can rather have really, really good nights. You can also have really, really bad nights. So the next other guy I wanted to talk about, the Diamondbacks, Justin Martinez. In his rookie season this year, I mean, the dude is just absolutely throwing gas. Average fastball, 101 miles an hour on his 4-seam and his sinker. He also has a high whiff percent on his slider at almost 47%, and on his splitter at almost 53%. A 0.64 ERA in 14 innings so far. And keep in mind, last year, I know that I said he's a rookie. He did play a little bit last year, and his ERA was close to 13 in just 10 innings. So he's really changed things around. So if you have guys like him and Seawald at the back end of that Diamondbacks bullpen, it can be really, really, really fun to watch. Oh, and another thing about Martinez that's kind of cool, he's yet to allow a barrel this season. I mean, is limiting hitters to an 85.5 miles per hour exit velocity. very, very impressive for such a young kid that's being put into high leverage situations. Couple more really quickly. Brian Hudson for the Brewers, a guy that's kind of newer to Major League Baseball, made his debut with the Dodgers, and he's been awesome for the Brewers this year. 0.60, 6.8 ERA, in 26 and a third innings with 31 strikeouts. He's gone 2 or more innings in 7 of his 18 appearances, which is huge for a manager and a bullpen where when a guy can go out there and get you 3 to 6 outs anytime that you want. Very, very impressive. And then Hudson's, if you look at his StatCast, is even more impressive. 2.2 xERA, which is in the 97th percentile, a 178 expected batting average. That's in the 98th percentile. He's just been an absolute stud. With Devin Williams going down, he's definitely picked up the slack for them. He was huge for them today in their win against the Cubs, because I know that because I had the Cubs. And then last one, 2 more really quickly. One for Commish, Cade Smith, your boy, been doing, stud, right? Am I wrong? Cade Smith, been absolute stud this year. The Canadian rookie, excellent. 25 years old, 2.01 ERA, 32 strikeouts, and 21 and a third innings. Keep in mind that Cleveland bullpen, number 1 in Major League Baseball in ERA, with a 2.59 ERA.
I think even more impressive is the fact that I feel like every year, if you go look at Cleveland's bullpen in spring training, you don't really expect a whole lot out of them. You have Clase, who's been a stalwart in the 9th inning. You look at him, okay, all-star, one of the best closers in the game. But especially this year, Trevor Steppen not healthy to start the year. You're looking at Hunter Gaddis, failed starter, converted to the bullpen. What are we going to get out of him? No, he's been good, but like the Cleveland just does such a good job getting the most out of what they have. Like other teams, a guy doesn't work out as a starter, and then he ends up not working out at all, and then he has to go to another organization before he figures things out. Cleveland consistently gets the most out of what they have with these guys. And again, 25 years old, and he's throwing the pill really, really well this year.
Well, and throwing the pill really well. Guess what? The StatCast numbers back it up to 2.52 expected ERA. That's 93rd percentile. 2.01 expected batting average. That's I think that's like high 80s or low 90s. And then the one thing that's really cool about Cade Smith is that his extension, 7.5 feet of extension. That's tied for 3rd most in Major League Baseball. Once he gets it out there, it's really hard to touch that splitter. And then an old veteran that's figuring out ways to do things just really quickly. Yimi Garcia for the Blue Jays, 4th team in who knows how many years. He's been around for 10 years. But a Jays bullpen that has been essentially terrible for the most of the year. He's been fantastic for them. 0.47 ERA with 24 strikeouts in 19 innings. Opponents hitting 0.81 against him. That leads all pitchers with 10 plus innings pitched in 2024 out of the bullpen. Teams are hitting 0.137 or 137 expected batting average, which is 3rd in Major League Baseball. And he's getting hitters to chase almost 40% of the time. That's one of the better rates in Major League Baseball as well. So just a couple names to put on. Just to make sure you all know, have you heard those names? So when you're at the bar, you can be like, oh yeah, you mean Garcia? He's been a stud. Have you seen that Justin Martinez guy? Yo, he can throw some gas. Now I got you.
Toast's going to have everybody looking smart this week talking to their friend. And we're cool with it. Plagiarize away. You don't got to give us credit, anything, man. Like, go use the information.
Use the information. I read Athletic, Fangraphs, MLB.com. I read articles all the time, man. I mean, the more you know, the better it is. So, yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna throw you a curveball here. This is my guy this week. You let me know if you've heard of this guy, Kyle Tucker.
Oh, King Tuck, once or twice. Man, I might have been.
Look at all this red.
King Tuck guy. You got to remember, I've been a bad guys guy for a long time, so I've been like King Tuck is like one of the better, more underrated baseball players one of the more underrated players in Major League Baseball that nobody knows about is Kyle Tucker. We talked about JP Crawford before the show. Kyle Tucker trumps that for sure.
For sure. Kyle Tucker, to me, he is a truly elite baseball player. Like, he is in that tier 1, like 1A tier of elite baseball players in Major League Baseball that nobody talks about. Like, he is just as good as Mookie Betts, Ronald Acuña when he's healthy, the Bryce Harpers. Like, Kyle Tucker is absolutely in those conversations. He was 18-1 or 20-1 preseason to win MVP. He was my pick in the American League. Right now, league leading 18 home runs, having a phenomenal month of May. Him and Aaron Judge have been hitting the absolute piss out of the baseball. Judge and Tucker both with 11 home runs since the beginning of May. And then shout out the little guy, Jose Ramirez, also with 10 long balls this month. But Kyle Tucker just gets it done in every way imaginable. Phenomenal play discipline. He swings at good pitches. He's not one of these guys. I know we always get people asking about bat speed in the chat. He's not one of these guys that has super plus bat speed. You can see it. The one thing that's not super red on his Savant page is the bat speed, only 62nd percentile. He's not up here anywhere close with the guys like the Giancarlos, the O'Neal Cruz, the Aaron Judge, who he's going toe to toe with in terms of home runs. Kyle Tucker is just a very, very good baseball player. Gets the most out of, I mean, 6'4", 212 pounds, but he gets the most out of his abilities because he doesn't chase bad pitches. He swings very, very frequently at good pitches. Just a complete baseball player. And just want to bring him up because as good as he is, like you said, I feel like we don't talk about him enough. We talk about every time Aaron Judge hits a home run, it's on ESPN. Kyle Tucker could have 3 home runs in a game, and I feel like it doesn't make any airwaves on the news, on Twitter, anything. So he's heating up, leading all of baseball with 18 home runs right now, which I think is notable, especially considering one of his teammates, Yordan Alvarez, who gets a lot more hype and a lot more talk on that team, who's also very, very good. But Kyle Tucker definitely deserves his flowers. Hits the baseball to all fields. Very, very good player. Defense is solid as well. One of the truly, truly premier players in Major League Baseball. Definitely worth a shout out this week.
Yeah, he's going to get paid, you guys. I don't know if it's going to be the Astros who pay him, but he's up for a contract, I think, in 2 years. I think Bregman's first and then him. And he's just going to be, I mean, he's just an absolute stud. When your Savant page looks like somebody committed a murder, you know that you're playing pretty good. So, and that's what Kyle Tucker's is. I don't think his defense gets nearly the credit that it should. I understand that he doesn't have some like crazy good arm, but he is never out of position. He never takes a bad route to the ball, and balls don't really drop around him. So it's one of those things where like, yeah, he doesn't have the best arm, but everything else is so freaking good and so fundamentally sound that it doesn't really even matter. So,
yeah. And this is the debate that I get into with people all the time, and it drives me nuts. And I'm not even saying I'm on the right side of this debate. It's just my personal opinion on this is it does not matter how physically gifted you are. Like Kyle Tucker does not have blazing speed. Like you said, he doesn't have the best arm in the world. Like he's not the most athletically gifted or athletically skilled player in Major League Baseball. But if you look, I'll pull this up. This is from my Substack back in the beginning of the season. Since the beginning of 2021, and this was going into opening day, Kyle Tucker is on a list with, I mean, just so undeniably the best players in Major League Baseball. So since 2021, 8th in home runs, 7th in stolen bases, 8th in WRC plus. The other 9 names that are on this list in terms of top 10 players in WRC plus in that time frame, the last couple seasons, all of them have finished top 4 in MVP voting, except for Kyle Tucker.
It just boggles my mind. And then you can go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you could pull that list back up again because you can go on that list and be like, okay, so Kyle Tucker is 8th in homers and 7th in stolen bases, 8th in WRC plus. Okay, well, what is his value? Well, Aaron Judge, he can hit and he can play defense, but he doesn't steal bases. So he's just, I mean, you know what I'm saying? You can start picking holes. Alvarez can't play the field and he can't run. Mike Trout can't stay healthy. Juan Soto can't play defense. Bryce Harper's defense and running. I mean, so Kyle Tucker, I'm not trying to say he's better than them, because he doesn't put up the hitting numbers. But as far as an all-around baseball player, he's just as good, if not better, than all those guys on that list.
Yeah, Tucker, second most stolen bases of anybody on this list, only behind Acuña, who obviously stole 70 bases last season. Doesn't strike out very often, double-digit walk rate, really the whole 9 yards. And so this is my point with this, though, is, you know, it gets back to the debate of Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes, right? Patrick Mahomes undeniably more physically gifted, but Tom Brady won 7 championships. Look at older guy, but look at Larry Bird, not someone who had blazing athleticism, but studied rebounding relentlessly, studied how the ball bounced off the rim, was always in good position to get rebounds. So he rebounded the ball at a high rate. Kyle Tucker understands the game at a very rare level, which allows him to be his best self, and it allows him to outproduce guys who are probably more physically gifted than him on a day-to-day basis. And I don't think he's the most fun player to watch. I think that's why we don't talk about him the same way we talk about Ronald Acuña, Bryce Harper, the Mookies. Like, it doesn't look as easy and as effortless as it does for some of these other guys, but he's every bit as good as I think any other player in Major League Baseball, not named Mookie Betts. But there's some bias.
I was
there.
waiting for that.
There's some bias there for sure.
I was waiting for that. Oh man. So yeah, Kyle Tucker, absolutely a stud. There's no question about that. Since I'm running it right now, why don't you talk to us about the team that you have going down? One of the better teams in Major League Baseball, are we assumed, right?
Yeah, and I think this is just I'm not shitting on the Dodgers whatsoever, but
You're about to.
I think I think it's fair to say they've underperformed a lot of people's expectations. Like they enter play in the new week, on pace for 97 wins, which that'll be probably good enough to win their division, probably good enough for the 1 or 2 seed in the National League playoffs. But I mean, when you have Mookie Betts, Ohtani, and Freeman batting 1, 2, 3 in the lineup, when you go and get Tyler Glasnow in the offseason and Yamamoto, you give $300 million to in the offseason. I know they're trying to win championships. It's not about can they win 110 games in the regular season, but from a market perspective, this was a team that was 104.5 wins in the preseason win total. If you're looking at futures bets, relative to that, they're underperforming for sure. And not to say that the Dodgers care about that, but it's the first time since the pandemic. I mean, it was the last time the Dodgers lost 5 games in a row was pre-pandemic, 2019, early in that season. So not to say the sky is falling, but the Dodgers have been legitimately, I don't want to say bad, but if you look at them against right-handed pitching as of late, it hasn't been good. Last 14 days, they're 20th in park adjusted metrics, which is WRC plus. If you just want to look at raw OPS, they're 21st against right-handed pitching in the last 14 days. And they've been a juggernaut against right-handed pitching the last 4 or 5 years, and you just keep adding more and more offensive talent to this lineup. I know Max Muncy is hurt. I know the bottom of that lineup isn't as deep as it has been in recent seasons, but I mean, damn, with that payroll, with that amount of star talent at the top of the roster, to be 21st over a relatively decent sample size at any point in the year, a little bit, maybe not a concern, but worth mentioning for sure. Again, the Dodgers might go 7-0 this week. They get the Mets, then they get the Rockies coming to Hollywood to end the week. They might be back on 100, 203 win pace by the end of the week, but it's just worth pointing out because, especially, I know we have a lot of people that listen to the show that bet on sports a lot. The Dodgers, and Toast mentioned it before the show, Glasnow's pitch, he's been a minus 300 to minus 350 favorite at least his last 2, maybe last 3 times he's been on the bump. And I know he's lost the last 2 times. The Dodgers have lost outright in those 2 games. One of the best pitchers in baseball, one of the best offenses in baseball. Baseball is a game where it never, ever, ever makes sense to pay minus 300 juice. It just will never work long term.
Nope, never has, never will. So again, and it's just I don't worry about the Dodgers too much, but they're going to have some decisions to make as well. Gavin Lux is doing nothing. I can't remember what I read. I want to say it was like 150 plate appearances. I want to say they were trying to give him a certain amount of plate appearances to see where he would be where he would be at a certain point during the season. And he's been terrible, at least at the plate. Can't hit lefties to save his life. Barely can hit righties to save his life either. Hasn't been really good for them. They have a guy like Miguel Vargas in the minors, who I think that he's probably going to be better than Gavin Lux. I don't know why I love Miguel Vargas so much. Part of it is like watching him last spring, knowing he had a broken hand, playing every day, knowing he couldn't hit and still taking walks. Like, I'm always going to love that guy for that. Like, he's just, I don't know. There's just something about that. That's just a baseball player that I love about him. But yeah, again, are the Dodgers in super trouble? No. I will say that it's kind of crazy to me that you lose 2 games to Arizona and then you go into Cincinnati, a place where, again, I don't care that you lose all 3 games. It is what it is. That's baseball. But you score 8 runs in Cincinnati and you scored 6 of those runs in the first game. I mean, most teams score 2 runs a night in Cincinnati just showing up. And you're the Dodgers and you're worth, you have $1 billion payroll and you scored 2 runs in 18 innings. Yeah. I think they're like 0 for 22 or 23 or something. Their last 0 for 23, their last 23 plate appearances with runners in scoring position, something like that. So yeah, again, they got a double header with the Mets coming up. We'll see where they're at after that, but yeah.
And again, not to totally shit on the Dodgers will be fine. They'll win probably close to 100 games. It's just from a betting perspective. I know a lot of people just every single day wake up, Dodgers -1.5, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Well, you've lost 5 in a row, and it's like this is a team that has some holes, and it's probably not a team. If you look at that division, the Giants really banged up. They're playing good baseball still somehow. I don't know if that's gonna be sustainable. The Padres right around 500. The Diamondbacks, an underwhelming team. The Rockies, the absolute embarrassment of Major League Baseball at this point in the season. The Dodgers don't need to be all gas, no break all season. We've seen that has not actually worked out well for them in terms of postseason success the last few years. So, from a betting perspective, just understand that it's not all perfect in Hollywood right now. Just be mindful.
Definitely not all perfect. So they are starting. Their bullpen's getting a little bit healthy. They'll get some guys back. They're going to be fine. But yeah, definitely not all sunshine and rainbows down at Chavez Ravine. That's for sure. You know where it's never sunshine and rainbows though? Oakland. Man, again, that's Oakland's going to be my team going down this week, which just kind of sucks. I know that if you watch this, this is a team that at least me and Commish on were a little bit higher. I would say a lot higher on than I would say anybody in the given public for the most part. 60 or 56 games in, they're 22 and 33. My issue is that their last 20 games, they've really started to go downhill. 5 and 15 their last 20, 3 and 7 their last 10. Losing, and again, it's not like the series they're playing teams that aren't even that great either. And that's, again, it's Oakland. I get it, but when they went on the road earlier this month to play Houston wasn't playing well. Houston got right against Oakland. Then they got swept by the Royals. They won 2 out of 3 against Colorado at home. 2 of those games, both games went to extra innings. The one game that they did win against Colorado, they were down 5 runs in the 11th or 12th inning. And they came back to score 6 runs or whatever it was to win that game in the 12th. And then they had another win against Houston when the bats didn't come to life. But that team's been really, really dead. And now they go on the road to face Tampa Bay next. They see Littell first. Again, it's just a spot where, if you're betting baseball a lot like us, you've been probably making some somewhat decent money against playing on Oakland. I don't know if that's the case. The big series will be their series after this one. They go on the road after Tampa Bay. They go on the road to Atlanta. Hopefully they'll have some of their better guys like JP Sears and whatnot pitching in those in that series to see where they're at. But as far as now, that little magical run that Oakland was on, and we can play them against righties and or lefties, it's kind of all done now. So it's kind of pick and choose your spots. Definitely no more Oakland on a daily basis or a couple times a week. Cause I was on a spot where I was like playing with Oakland every couple times a week and being more than comfortable with it. Just not in that spot anymore.
Well, and I think it's worth pointing out Paul Blackburn on the IL. That's 20% of your starts. That he was the guy, especially at home, who gave them a chance to win on a regular basis. And your other point about us being high in them preseason, we were high in them relative to their win total at 56.5. They're still on pace to win 65 games, even with their little down stretch here as of late. They're probably going to get worse at some point. I know there's 6.5 games out in a very winnable division because none of these teams have asserted themselves in the American League West at this point. But I promise you, Oakland wants absolutely no part of taking out any more money or any more players at the deadline. They are going to sell. They have no interest in winning. The ownership is obviously not loyal to the fan base in Oakland whatsoever. So they'll probably get worse at some point. They're still not. I mean, they're in my mind, they're not the White Sox. They're not the Rockies. They're not the Marlins. They're still a tier above that, but they are definitely regressing down to earth a little bit here in the middle of the season.
I mean, I guess for me, it's just that if you look at the Oakland lineup, again, I know this is a going down segment, but there's major league hitters on that team and guys that like have played in the major leagues that probably just need a chance, like Abraham Toro, guy that played for Canada in the WBC, a former Astro, got traded to Seattle. Now he's in Oakland. He ended up in Oakland. Miguel Andujar, a former Yankee, been trying to find a spot. I think he played for Pittsburgh as well. They claimed him off of waivers. Guys like Aletnis Diaz, another guy that came over from Houston. Esty Uriz, he's hurt as well. So they also have guys that are hurt on top of Paul Blackburn. I mean, Joe Boyle's terrible, but Ross Stripling's hurt. Ken Waldachuk, Alex Wood. Yeah. I mean,
Joe Boyle probably being misused, right? Like,
no, I get that, but my point is that all these, I mean, they were playing well, but now the injuries are starting to catch up to them. They obviously don't have the depth that other teams have. this is now the time where you start looking to fade Oakland. I guess that's yeah. So it just sucks because there are players on that team that you want to succeed. So
for sure, I think that we talk about it a fair amount on here, but Oakland is a very thrifty team in my mind. Like you mentioned, Miguel Andujar, like he kept getting cut because the guy can't play defense anywhere on the field. Could always hit, but not enough to get regular at bats. Like, I mean, he's not an Aaron Judge, he's not a Giancarlo Stanton. So when you don't play defense and then you can't hit it at an elite level, you get passed around. So Oakland ends up with a guy like that. They have guys, like Langoliers and Seth Brown, et cetera, who they can hit righties or they can hit lefties, but they're more of a platoon option on a good team than they would be an everyday player. They have pitchers who, they can pitch in the spacious confines at the Coliseum there, but you throw them in the East Coast and some of these smaller stadiums where there's some more hitter friendly parks, a little bit more challenging for them. So they're a thrifty team. Like they know what they're doing. I mean, for considering that they spend next to no money on an annual basis, they don't draft well, they don't develop talent very well. They do a fairly good job picking those types of guys off the waiver wire, and obviously the manager is always trying to win games. That's their reputation on the line. They've done a fairly decent job this year. I've been impressed. A 65 win pace with that team. I know you and I can look at that and we're like, oh, we like this about this player, we like this about that player. There's a lot of teams that are more talented than Oakland, and Oakland right now is on pace to win 55 games. To avoid a 100-loss season with that roster and the lack of commitment from ownership, I think that in and of itself is impressive if they could pull that off.
Extremely impressive what Mark Kotsay has been able to do. I would love to see Mark Kotsay get a job with a team that could spend money. To see what he could do. Because again, I mean, and really quickly, because you touched on a point that strikes near to my heart, keep in mind, if some of these guys get traded that are Oakland pitchers, be very wary because Oakland is a place that can make pitchers look really good. I'm not saying that Mason Miller's good because he pitches at Oakland. Mason Miller's good because he can throw 150 miles an hour. But and same with Lucas Eckridge and guys like that. But more or less the starters, just be careful if those guys get traded or whatever, because it's definitely a lot easier to pitch in Oakland than it is somewhere like Cincinnati or Yankee Stadium or something like that. And it's not because of the fans. It's because of how big the foul territory is and what like that. You'll never see a batting champion as an Oakland A. That just will never happen. Why? Well, now because they're moving, you might see it, but why not before? Because foul ground is like a fucking football field. I mean, it's impossible. You don't get lucky. If you don't foul the ball off hard enough, it's an out. You can't win a batting title like that.
Yeah. And the ball does not carry at all on the bay there. So that's why you never see 30 home runs from an Oakland A.
Let's just get going on Oakland and what we can.
But they're going to Vegas, and Vegas might be,
No, they're going to Sacramento. Then they're going to Vegas, which I will say really quickly. I want to go see a game in Sacramento. I bet you that's going to be awesome because it's going to be so small and intimate.
Yeah,
that would be cool.
No, I agree.
But anyway,
moving on to our betting tips of the week. We have no questions this week. We have a lot of very nice comments, and we appreciate each and every one of you who jumps on, watches the show. It is. I know we say it all the time. It is truly humbling to have 1,000+ people tuning into this show every single week. And we really appreciate the nice comments and the thoughtfulness that you guys put into these comments as well. We're always happy to answer questions. I know we had a couple comments about bat speed this week. We've had some comments about totals and things like that in the past. Do you have anything off the top of your head? I know I have a couple of things that I just want to touch on for some people.
As far as the betting tips, as far as just a couple things as far as the umpires, I just really wanted to point on that, since I don't really have a tip of the week, but I will say like everything in baseball is quantified. So even if you're betting strikeout props or outs above or outs for pitchers or over or under earned runs, like know the umpire. Like, I understand that it's not the easiest stats to find, and you might have to, I know EV Analytics has it and stuff, but there are statistics on umpires. You can understand who's hitter friendly, who's not hitter friendly, and go from there. And it doesn't have to be some intricate process. Me and Commish were talking about this pre-show. You can just pick like five guys that are good, or five guys that are pitcher friendly, five guys that are more hitter friendly, and then kind of go off of that and play totals and whatnot. Commish is really good with that stuff because he plays a lot more K props and stuff like that. So I guess I just wanted to point that out because there's just so many things that people are like, oh, really? I get so many things like, oh, wow, I didn't know that they kept stats on umpires. And it's just like, yeah, dude, it's in baseball. They literally keep stats on everything somehow quantifiable. So yeah, it's just just another thing to add to a layer of things to pay attention to. But yes.
Yeah, absolutely. There are certain umpires for me. I have a profile on every single umpire that umpires games in Major League Baseball that I use, but there's a list of like 5 to 7 super hitter friendly umpires and then 5 to 7 really pitcher friendly umpires that when those guys come up, unless there's crazy weather conditions that are impacting the game, it's an automatic bet on the under or an automatic bet on the over if it's a hitter friendly umpire, and obviously vice versa. And I mean, it's a profitable system and it matters a lot. Like you don't realize, but the most important stat in Major League Baseball, Tosh just mentioned, everything is tracked. And of course, you go to Savant, you see the bat speed and the expected stats and everything and all. We have so much information at our disposal. The number one thing that matters more than anything in the world in Major League Baseball is the count. And that's true at all levels of baseball. The difference between starting in at bat 0-1 versus 1-0 changes
everything.
Everything. The difference between a 1-2 count and a 2-1 count changes everything. Of course, the difference between a called third strike and in a ball being called, very impactful. So umpires matter a lot. And even if it's only 5, 6, 7 calls throughout the course of a game, when you're betting K props where your lines are 4.5, 5.5, that could be the difference between getting hooked or winning by a hook in a lot of situations. Totals in baseball are very sharp. They usually gravitate around 8. Umpire giving you a third out in an inning versus extending an inning, that could be the difference between a game going over, going under when you're talking about small margins like that. Umpires are very, very important. You don't need to live and die by umpires on a day-to-day basis, but also I just encourage you not to be that person on Twitter. It's like, oh my God, what a bad call from this umpire. Well, we have 10 years of data on this umpire. We know he's got a pretty big zone. That's something that you could account for. It's not the most difficult data to find. I know, like I have it. Swish Analytics has a public version of stuff that they put out that is like semi-accurate. You can pay for projection systems. I know the BAT has some umpire profiles, EV Analytics. There's lots of places that you can get umpire scorecards. They have pretty good information as well. So all of that. But my other point, the second part of that is if you have a system, whether it's umpire related, weather related, whatever it is, if you want to be a systems better, you have to bet your system every single time. And this is something that, and Toast and I will tell you straight, like, we struggle with this sometimes where you overthink yourself, like Tigers at home in a day game. Like if that's a system, you play it every single time. If two starting pitchers have high K percentages, they strike out a lot of batters, that's usually really good for an under. Don't talk yourself out of that if that's a system that you want to play every single time. Wind blowing in at Wrigley, a system. You have to play these things every single if you want to reap the ROI that is there. If you try to pick and choose, like I'll play it today, but I'm scared of the pitchers this day, or the umpire doesn't look great this day, or whatever it is, probably you're not going to make the ROI that you would if you just played it every single day. Just set it and forget it. And even the Dodgers, if you're a Dodgers -1.5 person, every single day, they've lost 5 in a row. You can't not play tomorrow because I guarantee you the Dodgers are gonna win by 2 runs at some point this week. And if you're scared of them now, and now they get a favorable stretch against the Mets and the Rockies, you got a chance to make all that coin back. You can't opt out of a system just because it's had a bad few days. It's obviously tough. And I mean, Toast, you could probably speak to this as well. When you're giving out plays and you lose on a system 4 times in a row, people start to doubt the system for sure, and they might give you some shit, but you have to stick to it. I mean, a system is a system because it has a good track record of success, and you got to stick to your guns. That would be my advice there.
Yeah. The Dodgers are a perfect example, guys. Like if you're for me, if you're playing the Dodgers money line, you're rather don't care about your money or you're not doing your work, because the Dodgers win by 2 or they lose outright. And that's just been a going pattern for them for almost 3.5, 4 years now. I don't have the number in front of me, but honestly, and I won't exaggerate. I think it's like they're 230 of the last 240 wins. I think it's 237 or something. Let's just go 240 out of the last 240 wins, like 220 or something like that. An astronomical number have been by 2 runs or more. So
Yeah.
again, there's just no reason. It doesn't matter if the Dodgers are minus 200 or minus 120. I will play the Dodgers minus 1.5. It does not matter. Now, that doesn't mean that I play the Dodgers every single day. Sometimes I fade the Dodgers, but I can tell you what I won't do. If I'm playing the Dodgers minus 1.5, do you think I'm going to play the other team's run line at plus 1.5? Hell no. Hell no. You play the other team on the money line, and then it's like, oh, my favorite thing is, oh, I'm just trying to be safe. I'm just trying to be safe. Well, it's not safer. It's just dumber. Just do the math. We can move on now.
Yeah, I think
what is it with the Dodgers?
It's like 21% of all Major League Baseball games end with a margin of victory of 1 run.
How much?
I think it's like 21 or 23%. I haven't got an updated number this year, but I was looking at it in the offseason. I think like the 3 or the 5 year number that I found was just over 20% of games end with a 1 run margin of victory. And of course, when a team's got a good offense like the Dodgers do, they tend to win a lot of games by 2+. The Dodgers super run line, if you take a minus 2.5 or minus 3.5, has also cashed at a very obscene rate the last couple of years. So things to think about. You know, I know people like to have good win records. I'm the same way. Like it's nice if you go, 5-3 or 6-3 and you have a good, nice win-loss record. But at the end of the day, if you go 6-3 and you bet all minus 150s, you're not going to make a whole lot of money. Versus you could go 3-3, but if you're betting the Dodgers minus 2.5, minus 3.5, and they cash in with, especially against a team like the Rockies this weekend that can't hit worth a shit, they can't pitch, got a bad bullpen. If the Dodgers use this weekend for some catharsis, they get out a little bit of frustration, and they win a couple of games by 5-6 runs, that's an opportunity to really get back some money, especially if you've been on the Dodgers the last 5 days and they've lost. So it's stuff to think about. You leave money on the table. It's the psychology of betting is a very interesting thing, and I think it's something that as you bet every single day, you get better and better at dealing with. But it is tough. I think anybody that does this consistently, they're lying to you if they tell you that it's not tough to go back to a team that just made you want to harm yourself the day before because they lost in the most improbable way. But you have to, like, if that's what you're doing day in and day out, you have to be able to go back to that system that has been profitable over time.
I mean, you guys, if you're watching this, you know me. Like, I love playing plus money dogs. I love being told how dumb I am. I love losing money, yada, yada, yada. Now, days like today, like for instance, today, it's Memorial Day. I had the Cubs because everybody in the world had the Brewers. I said, Steele's going to shove. Everybody's like, oh, you're throwing your money away. Of course, the Cubs blow it in the 8th, so they're all right. But my point is that if I play the Cubs at a plus number 3 or 4 times and I lose 2 and I win 2, I'm still up money. But people who are playing the Brewers at minus 130 or minus 140, if they're 2-2, they're not winning money, or they're bearing a tiny, tiny amount, depending on how you bet it or whatever. So again, there's math part of it too, but yeah, there's just a lot of things to take into account, but just don't bet dogs, lose 2 days worth of dogs and be like, oh, I'm going to bet a whole bunch of favorites. Because I've been in that position this all year. Like, there's a lot of favorites cashing, especially for a long time. It hasn't been for like the last week or so. I've been hitting a lot of dogs, but favorites have been cashing, and it's been really, really hard to stay within myself and be like, nope, take your plus money. Your math will work out over 162. Just trust your process. But it's hard. It's very hard. So
because you do feel like an idiot when you bet a dog that you feel like the Red Sox. I didn't bet the Red Sox today, but the Red Sox were a team today. I thought they had good value at that number.
And again, I'll just talk right now. Red Sox. There's no question that at plus 140 or whatever it was, 135. All the value is on the Red Sox. Now they lost 11-4, and so everybody's like, "Oh, that was a stupid pick. Good job." But again, you're really laying minus 140 or minus 180 or whatever with Baltimore coming home from a road.
And the Red Sox are above 5. Well, now they are 500 now, but
on the road,
the Red Sox have been
better.
I mean, like in real life, they're 27-27 now, but the Red Sox have been plus money almost every day this season. So if they're a perfect example of if you've bet the Red Sox every single day this year and they've been plus money almost every single game they've played, you'd be 50% win-loss record, but I would almost guarantee that you're up significant units if you've been on the Boston train all season.
Yeah, it's like me with the Nats. Love me some Nats baseball.
I know. Always I can't get with that team. I can't.
Huh?
I respect you.
You're like the most probable team in baseball, bro.
I know. I know. That organization, though. I can't trust that organization. But I respect you for it.
I get it. But
for it.
Yeah. So anyway, let's stop shitting on some people and stuff.
What do you
Let's
got
do
to make us feel good this week before we get out of here?
let's do a couple things. I got a couple guys I wanted to mention. I guess first and foremost, Elly De La Cruz. I got just fascinating baseball player. Just a couple of things. He's going up. I think that really quickly, he's two different players. Right-handed Elly De La Cruz and left-handed Elly De La Cruz is completely different. If you're betting on Elly De La Cruz, make sure he's going to have most of his bats on the left-handed side. Right-handed, he's terrible. Left-handed, let's just really quickly. Left-handed, career, 493 slugging, 826 OPS, 54% hard hit rate. That's top 10 this year, kind of like a guy like Bobby Witt Jr. From the right-handed side, to this date, let's just go slash line 209, 282, 294 with an OPS of merely 576. Just not the same hitter. But the reason that I wanted to bring it up is that he has a chance this year to possibly get 100 steals. And I know that that's crazy to think about, but it's just unbelievable what he's been able to do. And not only can he do that, he's going to be in a position to do that. We're in a quarter of the way through the season, essentially. He's the fifth player. I have it written down. He's the fifth player in modern history since 1900 and the first player since the Cardinals' Vince Coleman in 1987 to steal 100 more bags, to be on pace for 100 more bags. His 30 steals this year gives him a double-digit lead across Major League Baseball, and ahead of him, and his only steals are ahead of more than half of Major League Baseball teams. The question is, can he do it? Can he get on base enough? He's fast enough. Elly De La Cruz is almost fast as anybody in Major League Baseball. He's fifth in average sprint speed, and his bolts, which is like when they're like how fast they're running during actually running. He has 21 of those, which is like tops in the league as well. Cincinnati lets him do whatever the hell he wants. He can steal second, he can steal third, he can steal home. So it's just one of those things that I think that I know that the Reds have been slumping a lot lately, but what Elly De La Cruz makes you want to watch baseball on a daily basis. Every single day, it seems like he does something that just as a wow factor. So just wanted to give Elly some flowers really quickly. And then the next coming of Jesus Christ, Jeremy Estrada, just all he does is it's just all gas, no brakes, and nobody can hit this kid. And it's been really, really fun. He struck out 5 straight Yankees on Sunday in that 5-2 victory against the Yankees. It was really fun. He now has 10 consecutive strikeouts. That's a franchise record. I accidentally erased it, but I think only Alvarado has like more consecutive strikeouts as a relief appearance. I think he has like 2 more than him. So Estrada has a chance to beat that. And there's only like one other pitcher in like the last 100 years that's been able to do that. So what Jeremy Estrada has been doing for the Padres now coming up, been really fun to watch, because what's funny is that the only reason the Padres have him is because the Cubs were in like a little bit of like a roster crunch because they thought they were going to get Soto. And so they dropped him. The Padres traded Soto, picked up Estrada, and now he's a star for the Padres. So everything kind of all comes together somehow, some way. That's all I got.
So romantic when you put it that way, Toast.
It is. It's hard not to be romantic about baseball.
Well, my one feel good, Jack O'Loughlin, MLB debut, 3 scoreless innings, an Australian guy. The reason I bring him up, I mean, one, it's always cool to see guys make their big league debut, whether they give up 10 runs or they play well. So, I mean, that kudos to him. That's a very, very difficult thing to do to graduate to Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball is the hardest sport to debut of any of the professional sports. There's a lot of first-round picks in Major League Baseball that never make it to the big leagues. So anybody who makes it deserves a ton of credit, a ton of appreciation, a lot of hard work, a lot of sweat, grind that goes into that. But I also bring him up because he was the WBC star for Australia in this past event. And I like giving those guys shout outs, man. I think this past event, I think, was really, really good for bringing American baseball fans. They're bringing their awareness up to the global talent around the league. And, like I know Yariel Rodriguez did not come over, and he hasn't been a star out the gate for the Blue Jays, but he was a really good example. I think he played in that very first game against Norway, I think it was. There's a lot of talent across the globe, and these guys can play. Like, I know a lot of times we look at betting lines and like in those events, Australia was like plus 800 against the US and things like that. And people are like, oh, this isn't real baseball. These guys aren't very good. These guys are very, very good at baseball. They're very, very good at what they do. And professional baseball across the world is getting better and better all the time. And I think the thing that a lot of people forget is we get to see 30 phenomenal baseball teams every single day from March until October, and of course into the postseason in October. We get to see the best of the best. But a lot of these guys are global stars. It's not like America is North America, or like the United States is producing all of these stars. Guys who are winning MVP awards, guys who are winning Cy Youngs, a lot of times are foreign born. The global talent in baseball right now is phenomenal. I think it's going to continue to get better and better over the years. The more and more that we celebrate the WBC, and the next locations for the event just came for I think the 2026 event just came out. The more and more that event continues to gain traction and serve as sort of like baseball's Olympics, so to speak, I think the more and more talent you're going to see coming from all across the world. So shout out to him. Congrats on your MLB debut. Congrats on pitching well. Hopefully you're here to stay. Love rooting for an underdog. All good stuff. Feel good story of the week.
Yeah. If you guys weren't able to watch the World Baseball Classic, it's coming back in 2026. I don't know if there's better baseball to watch. I know that we get to watch Major League Baseball on a daily basis in this country, but it is unreal. I was there last year watching Colombia beat Mexico, and then the next day Mexico coming to beat the United States. It's just absolutely electric in there. And the other countries are so supportive as well. They come in waves. They've got noisemakers. It's not like it is in America. It's a little bit different. So you get all those cultures melting together all around baseball. It's a really, really beautiful thing.
I 100% agree. The two best baseball games I've ever been to, I was at Game 7 in 2016, the World Series between the Cubs and the Guardians, like widely regarded as one of the best baseball games to ever be played, ever, of all time. That game is...
What year was that again?
I'm not even going to say 1A. Like, it is tied for number one in my mind. And then I was also at the U.S.-Venezuela game in Miami in the WBC this past year when Trey Turner hit that go-ahead grand slam. Those two games, I really cannot separate. And I think that's notable, one, because the Guardians were my team. Like, I had been a season ticket holder for the Guardians for a couple of years. Like, when I was in college, like, I spent all of my disposable income on going and seeing that team on a regular basis, paying for playoff tickets. I was there with all my family. Like, some of the best memories of my entire life, that 2016 October. That game, and then the USA-Venezuela, the most electric atmospheres I've ever been to, in terms of just like pure fun baseball enjoyment. 1A, 1B, and I really couldn't separate the two if you had to ask me. But even the pool play games, like going and seeing Puerto Rico against Mexico when Randy Arozarena is going off, and the narratives around him having a country and like the whole story behind that, seeing the way that he's embraced by the fans, seeing the way that he embraces the fans that are supporting him. Like, it's a very, very different way to experience baseball. The fans are so appreciative, like you said. It means so much to the players because they're not representing their corporate entity. The same way all of you guys hate your jobs, like a lot of Major League Baseball players, they don't love that they're locked in playing for, it's the Mets or whoever. Like, but when they get to put on a Puerto Rico jersey, they get to put on a Mexico jersey or whatever it is, like that means so much to them. They feel like they're representing their families, their countries. They're inspiring kids from countries that are not always as affluent as the United States. So it's a really, really cool experience. The tickets are usually pretty affordable too, especially in pool play. So highly, highly encourage everyone to go experience that in 2026 if you're able to.
Yeah, it really doesn't get much better than that at all. So couldn't agree more on that one. So I think we've hit an hour though. We should probably get out of here at some time. I could continue to go on about the World.
It's because we spent 10 minutes on umpires. We could have been under an hour.
I know. Well, we started 10 minutes on umpires. Then we went probably like 7 minutes on Oakland and their stadium. It's what happens when me and you get in a room. It's just really hard not to get off on a tangent. Yeah. So anyway, for this week, for like plate coverage, that'll be it. Unless you have anything else to add, Commish.
Appreciate. No, you let us know. You like Angel Hernandez, or are you happy to see him rid from the game? You let us know, because we'll address it next week too, and we'll have our first pre-post Angel Hernandez week of Major League Baseball in at least in our lifetimes that we'll be able to talk about.
And if you don't like Angel Hernandez, go ahead and drop your favorite umpire in the comments. Let's be a little bit different, okay?
Who do you love? Who do you like? Oh man,
this guy's behind the plate. I'm gonna watch this game. I don't care. Love him or hate him, just drop their name. See you guys next week.
See you guys.